Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today here at our school board meeting, I am going to give you a presentation about the Guardian Plan. In our district, we take safety very, very seriously in light of everything that's happened in the past with Sandy Hook, Columbine, and of course Uvalde, which hit close to home with us, being that it was only a few hours from here. We really have taken a deep dive into safety and security over the last year and a half. In our district, we're very proud of some of the measures that we've taken to make sure that our district is safe for our students and our staff. We have taken a multi-pronged approach to school safety. We have done several needs assessments. We have evaluated our safety policies, our safety procedures, and we have added additional layers of security in order to make sure that our learning environment is as safe as possible for all of our students. So with that, just like to review some of the things that we have done over the last year and a half. Of course, before Uvalde, when I first came on board into our district, we really looked at some of the safety policies that had been done in the past here in Ingleside. Some of the things that we had done, besides our annual drills, was that in Ingleside, we trained our staff in SRP, which is our standard response protocol. Some of the other things that Ingleside did previously was put up perimeter fencing around all of the schools. And in Ingleside, we've always had a school resource officer in charge of our district. Now, since I've come aboard, we have done several different things. We have instituted the use of metal detectors at all of our secondary campuses. Another thing we did in order to facilitate the metal detectors was we added the clear backpack policy. And this was important because not only are going through the metal detectors, we're able to speed up that process with the clear backpacks, but it's also acted as a deterrent. And I'm very proud to say that we have actually decreased the number of items, prohibited items like vapes, knives, pocket knives, etc. We've decreased that by over 50% this year from last year, just by the use of those clear backpacks. So, that's been a very important thing that we have done for school safety. In addition to that, we've installed more security cameras throughout the district, which are monitored by our technology department and our campus administration. And we have also really done a deep dive into SRP training for all of our staff. At every faculty meeting, all of our campus principals have been directed to give tabletop exercises and practice in SRP so that our faculty knows what they're supposed to do in the case of an actual emergency. So all of those things have been really important, but one of the most important things was the institution of Raptor Emergency Alert. We actually started looking at Raptor Emergency Alert before Uvalde last year. We actually started in December of 2022 looking at different silent panic alerts that would allow staff to actually initiate the standard response protocol. And so we looked at several different softwares and we went out and talked to other districts. And one of the things that we found was that Raptor, which we were already using for our visitor management, it was important because it tied in and it was an app that any of our staff members could use. And it was already tied into our standard response protocol. So what we did is we went through and we actually purchased that software, and now all of our staff in our district, which has over 300 employees, have Raptor Emergency Alert on their phones or on their laptops or their tablets, and they have been trained throughout this school year at the beginning of the year, and we've done drills throughout the year using Raptor. They've been trained how to initiate a response. So all of these things have tied in and have been important in keeping our schools safe. Another thing that we did, and I'm really proud of in this district, is we instituted the school marshal plan. Last spring, Before Uvalde, we started exploring some different options because remember, in our district, our local law enforcement is a very small department. And we've always been blessed to have a school resource officer here in Ingleside, at least as long as I've known. And that individual works really well with our administration and our campuses and with our students, building relationships. But you're talking about one individual assigned to 4 different campuses. So we felt like we really needed to do something to bolster that law enforcement presence here in Ingleside, especially on our district campuses around our students and our staff. So we went through and we explored some different possibilities, and we were very fortunate here in Ingleside to have a community member who actually worked in the district already, who had law enforcement background. And we started talking with that individual and vetting that individual, and ultimately we were able to hire that individual as a school marshal. And just kind of going back to some of the presentations that we did last year at the board meetings when you approved the school marshal plan, was a school marshal is different than what we're going to talk about tonight, because a school marshal has more training. They're anonymous, just like the individuals we're going to talk about tonight are, but they have that law enforcement background. So they're more trained, they're anonymous, and they work within our district to act in the case of an emergency, of a life-threatening event. So they are an employee of the district. They do get paid a salary, and of course, we know budget is always a big issue when we talk about adding programs or policies. What's it going to cost us? And so that's kind of what brings me into the discussions we're going to have tonight. Is we are going to talk about adding a guardian plan. I have been asked by you, the board, to do some research about instituting the guardian plan here in Ingleside, and what that will entail. And so that is my reason here tonight, is to educate you, answer any questions that you might have about the guardian plan, and talk a little bit about what the differences are between the guardian and the marshal, and what the requirements of a school guardian are. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and dive into the presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me, and I will save those for the end. And what we'll do is we will go through what the guardian plan is and why I feel, and our superintendent, and and ultimately it's up to you, the school board, to decide if we're going to move forward with our school guardian plan and institute it here in Ingleside. So, just kind of looking at some facts on school safety. Some of the statistics: 9 out of 10 Texas school employees say that they worry about a shooting happening at their campus. Now, of course, this was taken in the aftermath of the Uvalde tragedy last year. But that's a pretty telling fact. 9 out of 10 people that are employees in a school throughout the state, when they did this survey, are worried about a school shooting. So what are we going to do in order to prevent that from happening? And that's one of the reasons we've taken all these different approaches, because we know as educators that if our teachers feel safe and our students feel safe, that better learning is going to happen. By providing that safe learning environment, we are going to promote education, and our children and our teachers are going to have a better experience for that. In addition to that, 42.4% of Texas school employees say the Uvalde school shooting may affect their decision to return. Now, that's a pretty telling fact. We're talking almost half of all the school employees in the state of Texas are worried enough where they're talking about possibly making a career change, possibly not returning to the profession because they just don't feel safe. So what are we going to do? What is the district going to do in order to provide that peace of mind and provide that additional security where our teachers can come back to work, they can feel safe, they can feel secure, our students can be here, they can get that educational experience that's going to better their futures. So, as we look at all of those things, we can institute all kinds of policies, we can review our procedures, our emergency operation plan. We can harden our facilities by adding additional fencing, metal detectors, backpack policies, Raptor emergency alert. All of those things are great, but they're a preventative measure. What are we going to do in case there's an emergency? What are we going to do to respond if a tragedy actually happened? And the reason we hired the school marshal, the reason we have our SRO floating between the different campuses daily, those are things that we have in place in case there's an active threat. Okay, we can add to that. We can add to that by adding a school guardian plan and training our faculty. We can give that additional defense, because what we know here in our community, what we've learned in our community, is that in the case of an actual threat, our law enforcement, our local law enforcement agency, their active response time is going to be 2 to 3 minutes. It's going to take 2 to 3 minutes for that first responder to arrive at that campus and make entry. Well, if you look back at all of the different school shootings and the mass casualty events, the event is usually over within 3 to 4 minutes. That's when the killing stops, on average. So those first 2 to 3 minutes are crucial to stop the dying, stop the killing. Okay? And that's what they train law enforcement officers. Stop the killing, then stop the dying. They're going to stop the threat first. As a school, we have an opportunity to possibly help decrease that response time. And that's what the school guardian plan does. So we're going to go ahead and start talking about what the school guardian plan is. Okay, what is the guardian program? So the purpose of the guardian program is to train select school staff in order to provide a defensive solution to an active shooter on campus in rural or smaller districts. Of course, we're not necessarily a rural district, we're an urban district. We got Corpus Christi, which is about 20 minutes away from us. We have some larger communities like Gregory, Portland, and Aransas Pass, Rockport just down the road. But our law enforcement agency here in Ingleside, our city police department, their response time is going to be 2 to 3 minutes before they make entry on a campus. In those first 2 to 3 minutes, how many individuals could be injured or ultimately killed in the case of a mass shooting? So what can we do as a district to reduce that response time? And the guardian plan could be the answer if that is what our board decides. So educators in the guardian program are trained and evaluated to carry concealed firearms in school facilities. Now, this is a big debate, and I understand there's a lot of concern. Why are we going to arm our teachers? What purpose does that serve in the learning community? Well, we've talked about that. It's to reduce that response time in the case of an actual threat. So what this program does is we select, through a vigorous vetting process, we select individual staff members who are interested in becoming guardians, and we train them. And they don't just get a one-off training. This is a training that occurs, they have a main training, and we'll get into that here in a few minutes, but they train throughout the year. And not only do they train, but they train with law enforcement officers. They learn tactics in order to defend themselves and defend students and stop the killing. And that's the whole purpose of this guardian plan. So educators are trained to mitigate the situation and stop the threat as quickly as possible during what we call the critical period. That critical period, ladies and gentlemen, that's that 2 to 3 minutes that it takes from the first call, the first emergency alert that's sent out, until those first responders arrive, till those professionals arrive. So how can we mitigate the situation? How can we stop the killing from happening? And that's by training, and that's by selecting the right people with the right frame of mind to carry concealed weapons in our schools. Now, the key word is concealed. These people are anonymous. The only individuals that are going to know who our guardians are is going to be our school board, our campus administration, and our district administration. and our local law enforcement officers. And I'll get into how those individuals play a role in knowing what those different individuals are, like how they learn who those individuals are and how they train with them. But the key word is they got to be anonymous. We don't want the students to know, oh, this teacher has a weapon, right? That creates a danger for the teacher, because in an active incident, in an active threat, if it's common knowledge which people on campus are carrying, they're going to be the first targets. So we have to keep it anonymous. And that is one great thing about the Guardian program. If it's run right, and we do follow the layout of how the program is run, then those individuals will remain anonymous. And hopefully we're training these individuals to do something that they never have to do. Because I know, as an educator myself for over 25 years, the last thing I would ever want to have to do is pull out a gun and shoot at a student. But I also know that those students who are victims, they're like my children. And I have to have that mentality of a sheepdog to protect them. So what are the requirements? What do individuals who feel that they have that mentality and they're willing to volunteer to be a school guardian, what do they have to do? Well, the first thing is all guardians are volunteers. This is not a paid position. As we've gone through this research process and we've talked to different districts around the state that have guardians, there's one thing that they all have in common. They're all volunteers. We can't make an educator carry a weapon. That's not what they went to school for. That's not what they trained to do. That's not what they ever thought they would have to do in a school. I never thought about having to carry a weapon in a school. I was here to teach and mold and educate young minds. So these individuals have to be volunteers. They have to want to be that protector. We cannot force them. We cannot require them as a district. So we have to keep that in mind if we decide to move forward with this process. Guardians should have basic handgun knowledge. And so as we kind of get into the training that these guardians are going to have to do and the roles that they're going to have to play, you're going to see they have to be very proficient with a handgun. In fact, a guardian, their handgun knowledge is actually more rigorous than what law enforcement has to go through. They have to shoot with better proficiency than a basic law enforcement TCOL commissioned officer. So you think about, well, we have a teacher who might be carrying a weapon or a staff member who might be a guardian and carrying that concealed handgun. An active threat breaks out. We want to make sure if that person ever has to draw their firearm to defend themselves and defend students in a school setting, we want to make sure that they're proficient with that handgun, that they know how to use that handgun in a stressful situation, and that they know how to shoot at a target and not hit innocent bystanders. And of course, if you go through history and you look at, warfare and special operations and law enforcement officers, that's not easy to do. People that train their entire lives for that, it's not easy to do. So we really have to be cognizant about who these individuals are and understand the training and the support that we're going to have to give them. Guardians will be required to have a license to carry from the state of Texas before even being selected for training. So, as we visited with different districts and as we talked to them about the guardian plans that they've instituted, one of the things that we felt was important as we did this research is before we even consider an individual as being a guardian, they're going to already have a license to carry. In other words, we don't want somebody, and I'm going to use the term cowboy, we don't want some cowboy who just thinks it's cool to carry a gun in school. That's not the individual we're looking for. We're looking for someone that is knowledgeable about handguns, who has trained in the use of handguns before ever even thinking about becoming a guardian. We want someone that has had that license to carry. They've gone through that mandated training in the state of Texas. They've already demonstrated shooting proficiency. We want those individuals because we're not going to have to train them before sending them off to the actual training that the district will pay for. Because what you're going to find out is that actual training that the district would pay for these individuals, those shooting requirements are more rigorous than what you do in just your basic license to carry test. Potential guardians should have a sheepdog mentality. They need to be punctual, they need to be organized, and they need to be even-tempered and able to solve problems without stressing out. We're going to ask these individuals, heaven forbid this ever actually happens, we're going to ask these individuals to be in possibly the most stressful situation they could have ever imagined being in. How are they going to respond? We all know if someone walked into this room and we start hearing gunshots, we all think we would respond appropriately, but everybody's different. Some people are going to run and flee. Some people are going to freeze. Some people are going to charge towards the shooter and fight back. We really, truly, and honestly don't know how we're going to respond until that happens. But qualities that we look for in a guardian is that sheepdog mentality. We're looking for those individuals throughout our district who are protectors. They're the individuals in a high stress situation, they keep that even-tempered mentality. They're not that individual that freezes. They're not that individual that runs and tries to protect themselves. They're that individual that can think on their feet, they can react appropriately, and they can respond to the situation. And that's what the guardians are looking for. That's what we're looking for in those guardians. We're looking for those type of individuals. We're not looking for the cowboy, because as a guardian, you're carrying a weapon all day long in a school building. You have to know when it's appropriate to draw that weapon and to respond to a threat. If there's a fight between students and it's just a fist fight, we don't want someone pulling a gun. Pulling a gun out and possibly having to use that weapon, that is the last response. They are our last line of defense, so to speak. So these individuals have to be trained. They have to have the right mentality. They have to carry themselves in the right way, the right manner. So if we decide to move forward as a board and initiate a guardian plan, we want to make sure we vet these individuals correctly. We want to make sure it's a vigorous vetting process. We want to make sure that we choose those right individuals, because ultimately they may have to respond and possibly take someone's life. So we're asking a lot of these people. And it's going to be up to us as a district to choose the right individuals, support them, and train them. Now, as we look at some of the training requirements that school guardians are going to have to do, you're going to see that it's a pretty intense training program. Okay, the first thing they have to have is a license to carry. We already talked about that. And we're looking for individuals who have a knowledge of handguns. These might be people that have military experience. These might be individuals who have had previous law enforcement experience in our district. Or it might just be individuals that have grown up and they're hunters, they've used weapons, they're comfortable going to the range and shooting proficiently. Okay, but we're looking for individuals who have already met that requirement. So they have to have a license to carry. That's the first requirement. That's laid out in the state law if you look at the guardian plan. The next thing that all of our guardians will have to do is they have to undergo a psychological evaluation. Okay, so this is kind of where it gets serious. As a district, we have to choose the right individuals. First of all, they're going to be volunteers. They're already going to have a license to carry. We're going to vet those individuals, and then we're going to select the people that we want to start this program. And before they ever go to a training, and before we ever really get started in that process, these individuals will have to undergo an intense psychological evaluation. And this is the same type of psychological evaluation that all law enforcement officers go to. This isn't just some go to a local psychiatrist and, oh yeah, answer some questions and yes, you can do this. No, this is an intense psychological evaluation. It is done by a certified professional. And if those individuals do not meet certain requirements in that psychological evaluation, then they're not going to be able to continue with the training to become a school guardian. Because once again, we're looking for stable individuals. We're looking for individuals who are not going to freeze up. We're not looking for individuals who are going to overreact. We're looking for individuals who can solve a problem and react in a stressful environment. And that psychological evaluation is just one of the tools that we use in making sure that we select the right people. In addition to that, all the guardians will undergo a comprehensive background check. Now, all members in our school district, for safety reasons and under state and federal law, they've already undergone a background check, right? But the background check that these individuals will go through is more in line of what law enforcement agencies require of their candidates. So it's a more thorough background check. It's not just seeing if there's a warrant out or they have a criminal history. They kind of dive a little deeper into that individual's life. Because once again, we're talking about an individual who's going to have a concealed weapon at a school. So we want to make sure that we have mentally stable individuals, and we want to make sure that we have individuals who do not have any type of history that may not have been seen in their background check for employment. In addition to that, once we have those individuals and we've selected them, they've undergone their psychological evaluation, we've been given the green light for that, we are going to send all of our guardians to undergo a mandatory 18-hour state certification training. So all school guardians have to go through this 18-hour course. And there's several different companies, and I'll get into them in just a second. There's several different companies that offer this certification program. I've called and I've spoken with several of them already. And if our board, if you decide to move forward with this plan, once we kind of vet and select our individuals, we will contact those companies and see when we can actually get our people into training and when we can get this done before the next school year. So they undergo this 18-hour state certification training. Some of the training programs that I have spoken with personally, one of the ones that several of our local districts who have already instituted the Guardian Plan, they recommend Schools on Target. Okay, Schools on Target started in the early 2000s. They are one of the best known organizations that train school guardians along with other law enforcement agencies. They conduct trainings throughout the state of Texas, but they have really ramped up their school guardian program in wake of the Uvalde tragedy. So I've spoken with the gentleman who owns Schools on Target. Now, Schools on Target is actually located in Marble Falls, and for the school guardian plan training, we would actually have to send our candidates to Marble Falls, where they would undergo a 2.5-day training. This training includes, shooting proficiency. It includes a written test. It includes actual live demonstrations, live simulations, and they give us different scenarios that our guardians will actually have to run through as far as how to respond to an active threat at a school. Another training program in the state is Straight Shooter out of Lubbock. Now, this is a little farther from us. Of course, Marble Falls is a good 3.5, 4 hours from us here in the Coastal Bend area. Lubbock, of course, would be even farther. We're talking 10 to 12 hours. The only difference between the two, they're both very highly recommended. Straight Shooter, at additional cost to the district, would actually send their trainers down here to us. And they would secure a facility and a shooting range where our candidates could get their training and ultimately receive their certification. But once again, that would be a board decision because we're going to start talking about several $1,000s in training per participant in the program. And if we do decide to move forward with this, I will certainly get quotes and present that to the superintendent, Mr. Merkovich, and then ultimately the school board would have to approve it. So, if we get to that point, I just wanted to give you an example of two of the companies out there that do this training. There are some others. These are the two that are the most highly recommended. And if there's more of a local one, then I can definitely get that information for you, and we can decide which route our district would want to go. So, training requirements. So this is at the actual training. Remember, our candidates they've been vetted by the district. They already have a license to carry. They already have undergone a psychological evaluation, a background check, okay? Now they actually get to the training, the certification part of becoming a guardian. So you can see this is a lengthy process because once again, we want to have the right people if we institute this program. So once they get there, the guardians will be required to score at least 90% on the shooting proficiency test. That means they're going to score 225 out of 250. Now in the state of Texas, to get your license to carry, you only have to score 70% on the shooting proficiency exam. And for those of you that may not know what the shooting proficiency exam is, basically it's a 50-round test. So you have to watch a bunch of videos and go through a class, right? And then you have to be with a certified shooting instructor at a range. And the way they score it is you shoot 50 rounds from various lengths. It's like 3 yards. You're going to shoot 20 rounds from 3 yards. You're going to shoot 20 rounds from 7 yards away. And then you're going to shoot 10 rounds from 13 yards away. And they have the silhouette target, and they score it based on where you hit those targets as you're shooting. And they try and put you in like a little setting where you're going to shoot so many rounds. So they might say 4 rounds in 10 seconds. So you load 4 rounds. The instructor will say go, and then you have to shoot those rounds at that target in that many seconds. And then they'll tell you 5 rounds, 8 seconds, go. So it's not just take your time. They're trying to kind of make you shoot rounds fast and recover with the recoil, etc., to see how proficient you are with your handgun. But in the state of Texas, 70% is passing for a license to carry. To be a school guardian and a law enforcement officer, you have to score at least 90% on this test. So once again, we want individuals who are comfortable with a handgun, who have experience. Because when they get to this training program, that's the first thing they do is that proficiency shooting. If they don't score 90%, they automatically fail, and they no longer are in the program. And we've already spent thousands of dollars on psychological exam and sending them to this training program, and now all of a sudden, they failed. They're not going to be a guardian. So we want to make sure whoever we select, we know that they're going to pass that proficiency exam. So they have to score at least a 90 on the written examination as well. So they're going to go out to the range, they're going to shoot. They pass that, they're going to take the written examination. They have to score at least 90 on that. And once they do that, they continue with the training program over the next 2 days. In that training program, they're going to learn about protecting students. So they're going to learn about how to protect students in the case of an actual event. They're going to learn about how to avoid the shooter. Because once again, gunfire goes off, people are going to be running everywhere. We got to make sure that our guardians are safe as well. We got to understand that they need to be able to defend themselves and protect themselves from potential gunfire. So they're going to learn how to avoid the shooter. They're going to learn about tactic for denying entry. So if I'm a school guardian and gunshots go off and I'm in a classroom with students, I'm going to deny entry to that shooter. I'm going to avoid it. I'm going to protect my students. They're going to learn how to avoid, deny, and defend. Now, this is the CRAZE training. This is a law enforcement training. Okay? All law enforcement officers now are required to undergo CRAZE training with their TCOL certification. And so they're going to learn about how to avoid the shooter. They're going to learn how to deny the attacker, denying entry. And then ultimately they're going to learn about how to defend. They're going to learn how to respond. They're going to learn about how to clear a room. They're going to learn how to post up. They're going to learn how to be in a formation with other law enforcement officers and stop the killing, because that's their main job is as the last line of defense. They're stop the killing, and they are supposed to decrease or mitigate that response that it takes for our first responders to get there. And then the last thing they're going to learn about is hardening the target. They'll learn about school safety, adding fencing, metal detectors, security cameras, etc. Some of the things that we've already talked about and we've already done. They're going to get trained on other things they can bring back to the district in order to help make our schools safe. So, what are the expectations? So, our guardians, they go all through this training, they do everything, they come back, they're certified. What are we going to expect here in Ingleside from our guardians? What are the expectations that are going to be laid out for them? Well, the expectations that, as we've done research and, as our board has indicated, kind of laid out some of the things they would like to see, our guardians are going to be required to carry all the time at work. Every day, all work day, except if they're coaching or if they're in an unlawful to carry location. Our guardians are going to be expected to have an all-in or all-out mentality that's going to be used by Ingleside ISD. So from the moment these individuals step into the district for their workday, they're going to be concealed carry. It's not going to be a choice. They're going to be required to carry that weapon every workday, all day long. Now, in the past, when the school guardian plan first came out, districts provided like a lockbox and teachers, or they could lock it up in a secure location. This is not the case anymore. They are going to be required to carry that weapon with them on their persons all day long. So once again, it's about choosing the right people, because we want people who are going to be committed to this. They have that all-in mentality. They are the people that are going to follow the rules, no exceptions. Those are the people we look for. The handgun must be carried on the person with an approved holster. So females that are guardians, they're not going to carry it in their purse. They're not going to lock it up in their desk drawer. They're not going to have it in their backpack or in their computer case. That weapon is going to be on them, on their body throughout the day. And they're going to have to use an approved holster. So they're going to use, whether it's on their hip, in the middle of their back, whether it's an ankle holster, whether they're wearing a jacket and it's a shoulder holster, but that weapon has to be concealed, so people aren't supposed to know you have it, and it has to be carried on your persons. They will not be left in purses, drawers, bags, briefcases, or any other location not approved by Ingleside ISD. Now, so this kind of gets where we have some exceptions. Because like our coaches, for example, if a coach is a guardian, and there's several districts that have coaches as guardians, if they are out coaching in shorts and a t-shirt out on the field, well, they're not going to be able to conceal carry. So that's one of those exceptions as a district and as a school board we're going to have to put in our policy and be prepared to do that. We're going to have to provide them a safe place to lock that weapon up when it cannot appropriately be carried. Okay, so this is a safe may be provided and available for coaches whom are approved members of the Guardian program. If no safe is provided or available, then we can store it in a locked car, which is required when on-person carrying is inappropriate. So several districts have provided safes, like in the coach's office, where those coaches would put that weapon when they're out on the practice field or they're not able to dress appropriately to carry a gun. Some districts don't provide that, and they are required to lock it up in their car, which in your license to carry in the state of Texas, if you have a handgun and you are a licensed to carry individual, you can lock it up in the car. It cannot be visible. It has to be locked up in a secured place. And that's perfectly legal to do. So those are some of the things as a board you're going to have to discuss and give us direction if we choose to continue down this path. Other expectations, they will carry identification showing approval by board and superintendent at all times. So, in a case of a school shooting, there's going to be chaos. Law enforcement are going to be arriving. Who are these school guardians? Because if I'm a school guardian, I have a weapon drawn and I'm protecting students and I'm trying to stop that threat, I don't want to get shot by friendly fire. So they're going to have identification. So one of the things that many districts do, they're going to have a badge that they're going to be required to carry. Some districts require a sash, so they carry a sash and they would actually put that sash or that vest on. Some districts have gone to wearing a shirt that says police on it, which is perfectly legal if they are certified in the state of Texas in the Guardian Plan. They can wear like a t-shirt that's under their regular work clothes, and in the case they have to draw their weapon, they can just pull their work shirt off or over their head, and they have an undershirt that says police. And those are all perfectly legal. Plus they're going to be training with law enforcement, so we'll know who those individuals are. Expectation of confidentiality with respect to the identity of each volunteer or guardian member. So once again, this is a volunteer program, but they're going to remain anonymous. People aren't going to know who they are. Guardians will be required to attend mandatory trainings with local law enforcement agencies throughout the year. This will include some Saturdays or Sundays depending on training availability. So this isn't just a one-time training and get your certification. We're going to require our guardians to train with local law enforcement. In the summer, they're going to have to attend a couple of trainings. And throughout the school year, on the weekend, we're going to open up our facilities to local law enforcement, and our guardians are going to be there. And they're going to train with them to respond to an active event. So what are the expenditures? Because remember, everything's about money. And money, I understand school budget and our resources are limited. So as we've researched this, this is examples of what other districts have already done. The cost paid by the guardian. So the guardian, this is out of their own pocket. They have to pay for their own weapon. They have to pay for their own holster. And they will carry liability insurance. And their liability insurance is going to be approximately $130 a year. And there are several companies out there that offer that. A lot of people with license to carries already carry this liability insurance. So those are costs that the guardian pays for themselves. Now, what's the district's expense? The district will pay for the psychological examination, which is going to be about $300 to $400 per person. The district will pay for the training, which these different programs, it can vary from about $1,200 to $1,500 an individual. The district will also pay for ammunition. As a district, we're going to provide the ammunition for these guardians, and we want them to shoot and stay proficient. So we're going to require them to shoot a certain number of rounds per month at a range, which the district will pay their membership to the range. So most districts provide about 50 rounds of ammunition per month, and they provide a range fee that allows that individual to go to that shooting range throughout the year and shoot rounds through their weapons so that they remain proficient through their training. Now, I've gone through a lot of information. As you know, we've already instituted the school marshal plan here in Ingleside, which is a great program, and hopefully this is something we can expand on if budget becomes a little bit better in the upcoming years. But you've asked me to bring other ideas to you. So I've brought the Guardian Plan, and several board members at our last meeting asked for some information. I've tried to reach out to not just area districts that have the Guardian Plan, but also I've reached out to other districts throughout the state. And I've come back to you with all this information, and I'm sure there are some questions. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor to any questions you might have. If you need additional information, then I will definitely take that, and if I don't know the answer right now, if I haven't presented it to you already, then I will get that, and I will get it to Mr. Merkovich, who can give that information to the board, or if you need me to come back at the next board meeting and present that, then I definitely can do that. So I would like to thank you for your time today. It's been, school safety is at the forefront of what we're trying to do here in Ingleside. We want our students and our staff to feel safe, because once again, we know that a safe school, a safe learning environment is going to benefit the education of our children. So thank you for your time. If you have any questions, now is the time that I will answer them.